Hey, folks, this is Jeff. I'm the conservative voice covering the MCU. This is the MCU'S Bleeding Edge podcast, both YouTube channel. I've got Perry Ramsey, special guest host again here, tangoing with me, my good friend. Perry is the host of the Off Topic podcast, which you can find on any of the podcast distribution platforms, I believe. And Perry does a very unique type of content with this podcast where he actually does like a discussion / interview with an individual person, of different background and different, and whatnot in every episode. And how you been doing with your podcast, Perry?
Good. I've kind of slowed it down a little bit. Things got busy. I know, we've talked about it before. I got a new job and doing some college classes and stuff. So I've slowed down a little bit, but as my college courses come to an end, I'm going to start it up more. But while I was in the peak of it, it was doing really well, and I was having a good time doing it. Did
WandaVision throw you off like it did me?
Sort of, a little bit. Nothing crazy because I wasn't doing too much coverage of that unless it was like with you.
Yeah.
But as you know, it takes a lot of time and
it does.
a lot of man hours to not only like do the interview, but then to create graphics and do posts and schedule other people, all the logistical stuff that it doesn't show unless
No, definitely doing what they're doing, that type of show. I can see why there would be a lot of pre-planning and structure you would have to do in terms of like feeling good about getting in, starting the whole, discussion with your guests and whatnot.
Right.
I'm sure you probably like to have a good idea and plan for like where you want things to go.
Yeah. And one good thing that I've kind of given myself and a little bit of laziness and a little bit of open-ended stuff is I make it, like I call it off topic, because I like to open it up and like you said, it's more of a discussion. So it doesn't, I have points that I like to bring up in case things slow down a little bit and I have questions, but and then being able to prepare and look at their content, read what they've written or listen to what they've said, whatever they're doing. I have to be familiar with that as well so that we can have conversations about it. So it does have it does have a lot of work that goes into it.
Yeah, no, I believe it.
Yeah.
I was just trying to explain to somebody on Instagram, like a fellow Rizzler, about my creative process the other day. And I told him straight up, I was like, look, do you honestly think that Joe Rogan just like cold, like from the jump, just meets his guests the first time that they walk onto his podcast and like he has no dialogue with them whatsoever before they start the conversation? Like, you think that's how he does things? Because that's not how he does it.
Right.
I'm trying to explain my process to somebody like, like, hey, I'm not just going to like do a show with you and just start recording like from jump without any like idea who you are or like anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. That just seems off-putting to me. I don't think I feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, I try to have some conversation with them, even via email. Sometimes I get to like physically talk to them, but a lot of times it's like just getting a sense of them by talking to them like 10 minutes beforehand, just to like ask them questions specifically about things they don't want to talk about, things they do want to talk about. But yeah, it's never like a cold open, it's never just like the get-go, here we go. And like I said, a lot of it is like also trying to like look at the stuff that they do and kind of like quote unquote like stalk their content to see what kind of stuff they're into and like what kind of stuff they talk about. It's just doing your due diligence, so it's a fun experience for everybody.
Well, I'll tell you, without getting too heavy into this topic, although I could talk about this for like an hour probably, like realistically, I understand exactly what you're talking about, because you do have to like just basically just expect and like deal with whatever type of communication you can get from certain people. Because, I mean, they are very busy, and what I notice is like the bigger the guest, like in terms of like what kind of person they are, like what kind of influence they have. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
how high up on the chain of they are and whatnot.
Yeah.
The least you can really talk to them, like
Right.
and sometimes you're even dealing with like an agent. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like a representative, and you don't even get to talk to them. They won't
Right.
talk to you, really. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
so. That's kind of, I mean, I guess that's part of the business, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you got to roll with the punches.
Yeah, and that's one thing that you kind of have to get used to being comfortable with. I know that was like a nerve-wracking part of it for me, was not necessarily being able to have conversations with people beforehand. That's why when I started out, I started out with two people that I knew fairly well, to kind of get the groove of it. But then when I had my third guest, I had never talked to him once beforehand, and he was a pretty popular guy in terms of like the world that he's in, and and that was kind of like the nerve-wracking, like, oh,
I remember
yeah,
we talked about this before on the phone
yeah,
one time, and you told me about this whole situation and whatnot, and you said you were like really like not exactly like very comfortable,
right.
but it got better, right?
Yes, yeah, by the end of it we were talking like really smoothly, but at first I had questions. I was super prepared, which was kind of my saving grace for that. But what
Yes,
I've noticed,
go to, right? Like if things are a
exactly,
little like silent or whatever, at least you had something to go to.
yeah, and you have to kind of like anticipate different conversations that might come up. Like that's something that you can't just rely on those questions to save you time, or save the conversation. You have to think about the different ways that conversation can go in different ways. So if you ask them a question about their job, you can't just be like, oh, so what do you do, and expect them to cover 20 minutes worth of content. Like you have to kind of pre-plan, like, oh, if they talk about this aspect of it, you can talk about this, or if they talk about this aspect, you can talk about this. So it's kind of like that whole kind of game. You kind of have to be on your,
Yeah, you really
yeah,
have to. You have to really kind of like not you don't know what you're going to get, so you have to
right,
kind of cover your bases. I understand that.
exactly, yeah,
That's something that's nice about doing MCU content is that like it's very free flowing.
yep,
I mean, it can go anywhere it goes.
right,
Like honestly, I mean, don't get me wrong. Honestly, Perry, between me and you, we work really well together. We could jump on any topic, I think, pretty much, and
yeah,
probably do a show together, and we wouldn't miss a beat.
yeah,
Um, and the more we get comfortable with each other, I think we almost know how to anticipate each other more. And we're, our ebb and flow is getting better. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like our chemistry, these live streams are pretty cool. I mean, they're fun to do. I mean, they're pretty basic, I mean, they're not complicated.
no,
You
and
know,
they're a nice platform for us to just like talk, like it doesn't feel like it's like tonight we have a time constraint, but a lot of times we haven't had that time constraint. So um it's nice. It's a nice thing because you don't have to worry about, like, with some guests it's like, oh, I only have 45 minutes, and you're like, okay, and then other times it's like, whatever, it can go for an hour and a half and it doesn't matter. And that's when you usually find the best conversations, is where you don't feel like there's any restrictions.
yeah, most definitely. I agree with you on that. I'll tell you. So I mean, basically, just so folks, and I really appreciate those of you who end up catching this video after the live stream. Perry and I talked about this. I've talked about this earlier. What we're basically trying to do is just get some consistency going right now. Where we want to cover the Disney Plus series. And obviously do a bang out up job. Doing it, and at the same time, I think I'm kind of like personally working out the angles in terms of like scheduling and like making sure that I'm letting people know what's going on when we're going to be on and everything and whatnot. I've been a little off and on with it and whatnot. I'll get better, I'm sure, over time. But I do really appreciate everybody who takes the time to check these videos out. I do look at my YouTube channel every couple of days or so to see, and people do actually take their time to watch these videos and these live streams. It's a great feeling to actually have somebody let us know, like that they've enjoyed seeing us. And honestly, Perry, I probably haven't even told you until now, but I've had like multiple people comment to me, even random people from Facebook, that they've enjoyed watching us. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm sorry, man, I forgot about it, to tell you the
Oh,
truth.
that's all right.
But yeah, man, we're not like just because we only have one or two people, catching us alive and whatnot. Don't think that
Yeah.
nobody's watching, because
Right.
and that's hey, when you put something on YouTube, it's forever, right?
Right.
So like I can't wait till we get to the point where we get our first chance to do some feature films.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Let's hope everything with Black Widow stays good. You know what I mean?
Yep.
In terms of like its May release. I think that's the first film, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And then what comes after that? Is it the Eternals or Shang-Chi?
I think it's Shang-Chi and then the Eternals. Let me double check that. Yeah.
That makes sense. And then as far as Disney Plus goes, I believe the order is that after this, I believe we get What If.
I think it's Loki. Yeah, it's Loki and then What If. Yeah.
And then after What If, it's Miss Marvel, I think. Or no, yes. Hawkeye, then Miss Marvel.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Hawkeye because Hawkeye's in production right now. So if you think about it, that makes sense. You know, yes. Loki's wrapped up; they're already done with that. I don't even think I think they're done with post production on Loki. To tell you the truth, I think pandemic. Yeah, I mean it's they've had plenty of time. Right. Thor's still shooting, and Guardians they haven't even started yet or anything like that. Fantastic Four they started pre-production.
Yep.
I think they're probably casting right now and trying to find writers to write the script.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yep.
I don't. I mean, just real quick, without getting too far off topic, how do you feel? Are you excited about the Fantastic Four?
I am. Yeah, I think it's in the best hands it could be now that it's with Marvel. I'm not going to hold my breath that it's going to be completely life-changing in that sense, but I think they'll do. I think it'll be safe is what I think it'll be. I think it'll be a safe movie to get it started, and then they'll explore more into depth with the Fantastic Four lore, and more in depth with that side of it where it gets a little more cosmic-y and a little bit more weird. But I think they're going to play it safe in the beginning because it has had such a bad track record with the last 3 films that they've made.
If you're going to be confident about anything or anybody, I would think it would be Marvel Studios and Feige, right? I mean,
the Hat Man. Yeah,
especially WandaVision, right? I mean, they've done you want to talk about confidence instilling, you know what I'm saying? And you want to talk about following through, you know what I mean? And really pulling something off,
right?
That was special. I mean, honestly, I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to stop talking about WandaVision for a while. I mean, it has not disappeared in my mind.
Yeah.
I still have thoughts on it, Perry. I do.
Right. and it's going to keep developing. Even, we're going to probably see things that set up 2 years from now with different movies, how things play out. Cause like we've said in the other live streams and we've talked about, it's setting up the trilogy. So I think we're going to see the effects of it, leading through these other 2 films and then into the future of different Marvel movies that do the weird, the magic aspect of it,
Yeah, the cosmic MCU.
Yeah,
that's what Harvey calls it.
Yep. So I haven't thought about it too much because I've been thinking about Falcon and Winter Soldier, but there is still that aspect of we did a live stream and we thought about it, and then you're like, shit, we should have thought about it. Yeah. We should have said this. We should have mentioned that, Well,
let's dig into this. All right. So Dark Sage 99117. I am very grateful for all the MCU and the shows have given us in terms of telling a cohesive story and great ideas. But I feel like a show like The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is more fan service than anything else. These shows, while advancing the story, just seem to be there to please fans. My question is, what point do all these movies and television shows from Marvel become too much? Okay, well, I'll take the first swing at this.
Yeah.
I think it's, honestly, to tell you the truth, I don't think it's ever too much. I mean, look, Dark Sage, we already took a break. I mean, the pandemic, COVID-19, the CCP virus, threw off the complete production schedule for the MCU completely. I mean, we went a complete full year plus without an MCU, production. So at that point, if you look at the history of the MCU and where things got at the point where Civil War came out and Infinity War came out, Endgame came out, they were doing 3 or 4 films a year. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like things were, that's a heavy schedule, you
Yeah.
know. And at that point, realistically, I got to be honest with you. I have the complete opposite opinion than you have. I think the Disney Plus series are a bonus, like a total like as a fan of these characters and these superheroes and these comics and everything for a long time. I'm just like a kid watching this stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
you go ahead, Perry.
Um, I understand Dark Sage 9117. I totally understand because I thought about that too when they announced how many shows, and I thought about the same thing when they announced all the Star Wars shows too. I was thinking that too. Because it seems like it's just going to be one thing, one thing, one thing, one thing, one thing,
Yeah,
So I totally understand where like you could feel like it's going to be like Marvel exhaustion at some point. The only thing that I think is saving that effect is going to be the different aspects of what these shows are going to be, like what we saw with WandaVision, how different it kind of becomes. So with the Falcon and Winter Soldier, this one was like we've talked about it before. This one was supposed to be the first one, so I think this one was supposed to be. I think it's going to be more so. That one was supposed to be like the kick and punch 'em, like
yeah.
here we can do with these shows, and then WandaVision was supposed to be like, but we can do other different things, like this. But if you feel like it's going to be exhausting, like that's when it becomes like kind of like or it's going to be too much at some point. That's kind of that kind of becomes individualized,
Yeah.
whether or not you get it. But I don't see it being too much for me, just personally. But I understand that when so much content is coming out from the same kind of universe and the same primary
Oh
like
yeah.
storyline, it can
From
feel like
from a
yeah,
film standpoint overall, right, Perry? I mean, from from a movie standpoint overall, that the whole, in
yeah,
total.
right. You look at this year and there's 4 movies and
See their
like
backup schedule.
yeah, and there's 4 different TV shows coming out. Like that's a lot of content,
It is.
But in retrospect, it's not also too much different than they were doing before, just not cohesively. Like they've always had for the last 10 years, they had not 10 years, maybe like 8 or 9 years. They had Agents of Shield running cohesively with it. They also had the Netflix Marvel shows that were running. So there was always Marvel shows and Marvel movies going for the last like 6 or 7 years, and then Agents of Shield a little before that. But now it's cohesive, so I don't.
Plus the Netflix shows.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think it's going to become pretty individualized when it comes to how much it's going to be too much. And if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to, because Kevin Feige has kind of made it clear that these aren't necessarily going to be integral, and you will be able to like not watch the shows and still know what's happening. But we'll have to see how far that can actually go before people stop wanting to watch the shows because they're not important enough.
Well,
Or if they become too important and people go away from like the company because they end up being too important and people don't have the time to watch it.
well, there you go. I mean, I think you got to look at it from a cultural aspect, Dark Sage. I mean, like, look where we're at right now in our culture. I mean, there's instant gratification is a constant. It never ends. Everyone wants more and they want it quickly. Right now, I just think in this culture, in this time period right now, and where we're at, I think that the MCU struck a chord. I think that Marvel Studios struck a chord. They found a pocket in time where it was an ideal situation to start what they started. You know what I mean? And start churning these films out. And let's be honest here. When they made the first Iron Man film, I mean, you're going to see Black Widow it's going to be your first MCU movie that you're going to see in the theater. Okay, well, I mean, when they made the Iron Man film with Robert Downey Jr., they didn't even know if they were going to make another movie after that, like in the MCU. It depended on whether Iron Man was successful or not. It was a total, shot in the dark kind of thing. Like they took a chance. And I mean, like honestly, Marvel Studios, if you look at their whole story, when they first started, they had to ask for a loan. They took a loans out to get money to produce Iron Man. That's how they paid to produce Iron Man. So like, take that into consideration, when you think about the MCU and you think about, because all this to me is like all a part of it. Like you got to take into consideration where things started and the fact that this vision, this dream that Kevin Feige had and the Marvel Studios had, I mean, they literally took a chance and it worked. And I mean, at that point, I mean, what Endgame is the most successful film in box office history, right? I mean,
Avatar just passed it with a re-release.
How did Avatar pass it? Did
he just re-released it
oh,
just to do
it? I was wondering how that happened.
James Cameron is just a little petty guy. It was so funny. I think I tweeted about it. I was like, it's so petty. I almost respect it. Like,
that they're pissed off at the success that Marvel has. They are.
Oh yeah.
They are because let's be honest here. What is it, like 4 out of like the top 10 box office all time for films is like comes from the MCU.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, they're going to be adding more too. Like, just wait until they do more Avengers films.
Yeah.
Like, crap. People will go insane.
Yeah. I do want to address his Dark Sage's comment. He said, for example, Black Widow's first MCU movie I'm not going to see. Movie takes place before Infinity War. We already know what happens and all that stuff. He said it just feels like more character development for a character we already know. So with that, I see what you're saying, and that was one of the big questions and one of the biggest kind of complaints about releasing this at this point. Obviously, like you said, we already know what happens with her, and it feels like her arc was closed. But there is that aspect of just getting more in depth with a character that didn't get the attention she probably deserved.
Yes, good point.
And at the time where it should have taken place, it just didn't happen, whether it was because they didn't want to have the Black Widow movie or they didn't find the right writers to fight the right story that they wanted to tell. So I completely get that. It kind of feels redundant. But at the same time, it's bringing in a cool character in Taskmaster that they might bring back later in other movies, which would be a cool thing. And I think bringing in her backstory a little bit more with characters that you see in her like comic book origins showing up in this would be I think it's just like gravy, it's not going to be a necessity moving forward, but I get the I get kind of being like, well, why do I need to go see it when we already know what happens? I think it's just gravy.
Did she do though? Harry, do you think she was due? I mean, I'm talking about Scarlett Johansson and the Black Widow character, like 50-50 here.
Yeah, for sure. Because to me, it just felt like they made a lot of like side gags about like her history and especially with like Clint and like Hawkeye making jokes back and forth. Oh, remember that time in Budapest, or this reminds me of Budapest, like stuff like that. And in my mind, I was like, well, show me Budapest. Show me that, and
that we saw in the first Avengers film wasn't very much to like work with.
Right. And especially when she gets her, in Age of Ultron, I'm like, I can't pick out the movies right now. Age of Ultron, where she gets her mind like messes, Scarlet Witch messes with her mind. And
there's like a, what do you call it? What is that called? That's her, that's a hex.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you see the school that she grew up in. And at that moment I was like, oh, we need to explore this more. So it totally makes sense where you're thinking like, oh, it doesn't, like, it's probably not going to affect much in the long run. But like I said, there might just be characters, and they might present a new character that might end up being the new Black Widow at some point. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. That it'll be worth it to see it. I don't think it's not going to be worth it to see it by any stretch of the imagination. But
of course, there's financial aspects too. I mean, of course, they want money to be made off of Black Widow.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, but like I said in the comment section to Dark Sage, she's an original 6 Avenger. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, she is. She has been and was the most popular female character in the MCU for over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I mean, Yeah, is there fan service involved? Of course there is. I mean, look, the fan service is a major crucial aspect of what the MCU does. I mean, look at how Endgame played out. But I mean, at the same time, of course, there's dual reasons why they make these movies. Of course, there's profit involved. Of course, Disney wants to see, wants to see green, at the end of the day, when it boils down to it, not red. But realistically, there's more to it than that. There's actually like a personal and a character story where, like Perry said, we never got a backstory from Black Widow. You know what I mean? We never, a lot of fans wanted to see the school where she was trained and everything like that. They wanted to see, her and Clint in Budapest. And we're going to get that to some extent. We believe in that film. And also on top of that, they did make the movie to connect it into Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They did. And of course, things didn't work out. They ended up having to do WandaVision first, then Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But we're going to end up seeing a clear connection between Black Widow and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, even though it's going to come out post Falcon and Winter Soldier instead of in front. You know, I don't know what you think, Perry, but I believe that connection is the Super Soldier Serum.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's going to be like the main component to that. Whether or not it's, I think we've talked about this, whether or not it's Black Widow had some form of it, or all the Black Widows that were in the training school, like in that school, had some sort of diluted version of it, or if it's Taskmaster who gets a version of it and then becomes a more important player in like a Falcon and Winter Soldier season 2 kind of thing. Like those kind of situations, it's Kevin Feige made it very clear that there's a connection. So, and he is very particular about what he says. So
yes, he is. And again, I think that, Darkseid, just to kind of try to put a bow on this, this is a conversation Perry and I could have for an hour. Again, I mean, Perry and I can talk about anything for like hours. I mean, that's just, we get along like that. We have that kind of together. And that's why he's a good friend of mine and become a very good friend of mine. And I'm happy, that I know him. But realistically, I'm very, it's not even that I'm confident in Marvel Studios. It's that I very much think highly of Kevin Feige and what they do, and his team. Because honestly, these people they pre-plan this universe 4, 5, 6 years out, and they make it work. They deliver. I mean, they literally, if not for the pandemic, they schedule everything 3, 4, 5 years ahead. They know exactly what date they want to release a film 5 years later from when they're actually planning it and everything like that. And they deliver. And you gotta be honest here and respect that. They're like a machine when it comes to this stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, it helps that the source material comes from the Marvel comic books and everything and whatnot. This universe is easy to work with as far as I'm concerned. But I mean, what do you think? What are your last thoughts on the comment, Perry?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit all the points I was thinking. And I totally understand, I don't know how big of a MCU fan Darkseid is. I don't know if he's more of the casual fan that goes and sees all the movies, but doesn't necessarily dive too deep into it. I'm not sure. And that's not a strife against Darkseid or anything. That's totally whatever you want to do with it. But it is part of the aspect of kind of giving the character its due. Scarlett Johansson should have had her popularity immediately started from the first couple movies she was in with Iron Man 2 and then the Avengers and all that stuff. And it shouldn't have taken this long, but it is. And I think that's part of it. I think that's a big part of it, is kind of giving her the credit that and the popularity that she earned as that character. And even though we do know how it ends, it's like the prequels for Star Wars. You still kind of want to know what led up to it. You kind of still want to know what happened. And if you don't go see it. Not a big deal.
Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, hey, look, Darkseid, we're all friends here. You know what I mean? This is a no hate, no, negativity, environment. When it comes to me and Perry and Cybernetic Shark when he comes on our review. And just to let people know who do end up catching this. And Darkseid, I would love it if you would check in with us again. We're going to be doing a review for Falcon and the Winter Soldier the first episode, next Wednesday evening. We have not picked a time yet, but I'm assuming it's probably going to be something like what, Perry? Like, I don't know, 8 o'clock or something?
Yeah, 7 or 8 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah, something like that, 7 o'clock, whatever. And, generally, we're probably going to be doing reviews like that all through the series. So, I mean, if you change your mind and you watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier and you're as stoked as me and Perry are going to be when we watch the first episode, you should definitely check out our review because, I mean, honestly, Perry and I are good people, man. I mean, no joke. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're just getting started here with this YouTube stuff and whatnot. But I'll tell you right now, when it's all said and done, we're not here for no reason. Like, I mean, we're here to make an impact. And, I mean, I don't want to just make MCU content just for fun or whatever. I want to actually get somewhere with it. And, overall, I mean, Perry and I, we know the MCU very well. And we're very invested in it. We are. I mean, personally, we're very invested in it. Now, you don't have that kind of emotional connection to the content. I get that. But, you have to respect the fact that we do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we love the fan service. Like, Perry, don't you? I mean, when Captain America picked up Moldagear, you're not freaking stoked?
Oh, yeah. Dude, I was I dragged my dad to it, who isn't a huge fan. He likes watching them.
What do you think of it?
He liked it, but I was like when Iron Man died, I was sitting there like holding back tears, and and he was sitting there like looking at me like, it's just a movie, man.
I had a girlfriend to see her first MCU film. She all she'd ever seen before was like parts of Thor: The Dark. Okay. That's all she ever saw.
Oh yeah.
I took her to Endgame for her first MCU film, and she was bawling her eyes out when Iron Man died. And she would not admit it afterwards at all. She would get pissed off when I would I would bring it up, and I'd be like, "Remember Endgame when you were crying your freaking eyes out and shit at your first MCU film and whatnot?" That's kind of movie, that's how like individual of film it was, that you could throw a person in there like that with no experience with the MCU or the comics and watch Endgame and be emotionally captivated by how things worked out at the end.
Yeah.
And, I mean, honestly, I think they should have included that scene where all the characters, all these superheroes, like get down on their knees and everything. They should have
scene.
Man.
Yeah.
That I mean, I get it that there were time constraints, but I would have loved to have seen that.
Yeah. Yeah. And to like kind of get the ball rolling to end that with Dark Sage's comments. Dark Sage, we appreciate the comments. It's great to bring up those points because there's a lot of people that feel the same way, and it's a totally valid point. And I think it just comes down to like the personal opinion on whether or not it adds value to your experience in the MCU or it doesn't add value to your experience in the MCU. So
no, that's a great point.
Yeah, and definitely come back and ask some more questions because we value those questions. It helps us keep the ball rolling, keeps us on our toes a little bit.
I can handle, it is what it is. I mean,
oh yeah.
There's going to be aspects of the MCU where even Perry and I are going to question some of the motives and some of the decisions that they make and whatnot.
Right.
I mean, don't think for a second that there's probably not going to be things that even happen in Falcon and the Winter Soldier where Perry and I are going to be like, like maybe they could have done this differently or,
even in the WandaVision review, that's the kind of stuff I was hoping for a little bit different stuff, and I expressed that. But at the end of the day, it was still really entertaining and I really enjoyed it, but there was definitely aspects that I wish they had done a little bit differently.
Well, this is the thing about making content like this, Perry. Look at this. I mean, it's 9:35. We ended up not even covering the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We just got a comment and we rolled with it and whatnot. You know what? It's all good. It's all great, because like, hey, just wait until like, down the road, a couple months from now when we've got more people in the comment section and we're getting peppered with questions. We're going to have to be very concise with our answers to them at that point because our numbers are going to grow. There's no way around. Honestly, you keep making content like this every week, you're going to attract an audience. And and if I keep promoting it, people will know it's happening. And that's a good thing, right? I mean, it helps our individual content too, which we both make. And the MCU is kind of just like a at the end of the day, it's like a fun, it's something we really enjoy. Like we like doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, please understand that at least. Like Perry and I enjoy doing this. Like this is not work at all. Like this is not hard. This is like, this is great.
Yeah.
It's outstanding. But you know what? At this point, folks, listen, Perry has a short night tonight. He's got some stuff to going on and whatnot, to do and everything and whatnot, which of course, always comes first when it comes to making content. And at that point, go ahead, Perry.
Why don't we I have time if we want to do we can do the last trailer and talk about that and so we don't, because I can sacrifice 10 or 15 minutes. I got some stuff done before we did this because we started a little bit later than we originally were going to do.
Let's do it.
So if we want to do that, we can talk about the Winter Soldier and Falcon at least a little bit.
It feels like it belongs to someone else. That shield represents a lot of things to a lot of people.
Symbols are nothing without the women and men that give them meaning. We need someone to inspire us again.
The world's more complicated now.
We're never gonna stop. This world is ours. There's no going back.
It doesn't have to be a war.
It already is.
You can't lose this fight. If we do this, we're gonna do it our own way.
So we're partners, co-workers.
Not necessarily a team.
No. We look damn good, though.
Dude,
Take
my money. Please.
The first thing I want to say about that is the production value is just crazy, but also
come on, man. Dark Sage. How can you even come on, man? Are you kidding me, bro? Seriously, I'm not trying to be funny here, but come on, man. How can you not be freaking stoked for that? Come on, man. That's the shield, bro.
Oh, it's so great too, because now with that last trailer especially, they brought out what I think the relationship between Bucky and Sam is going to be like, where it seems like Bucky doesn't think that Sam understands the weight of having that shield is, he doesn't completely
of course, because, he wasn't in World War II.
Right. So I think it's going to be like that. Not that Bucky is bitter that he wasn't handed the shield, but so much that it's going to be, he wants to make sure that Sam understands what that represents. And he said the line, that shield represents a lot of things to a lot of different people. And I think that's going to be a great development of their relationship as Sam kind of matures into what into the next Captain America. I think that's what they're leading into, at least. Obviously that's kind of speculation, but because they've both been Captain America in the comics, so
yeah, they have. Good point.
But it does seem like it's leaning towards Bucky doesn't feel like he deserves it because of his past. I think that's been set up before. And so he wants to make sure Sam understands the weight of what that shield represents to people because of what you said, he wasn't in World War II. He didn't see he didn't see like what Captain America did and what he risked for people at that time and stuff like that. So
the impact that he had. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well,
So,
definitely.
And I think that'll be a really cool like development of their relationship in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Dark Sage, I mean, me personally, I cannot help myself but with this series but be excited, because I mean there's just so much going on in that trailer that's just, it's just like, it's mind-blowing to me. Like, I mean, I don't know, I mean, I would have to be like dead to not be excited by that trailer personally. Just because, like, I mean, understand this, Dark Sage, the difference between me and you is that I read the Marvel comics as a kid voluminously. I have thousands and thousands and thousands of comic books in my collection, and I know these characters in and out. I've been reading this stuff for years and years and years, going back to the 90s and the late 80s and everything and whatnot. So I mean, that's how I learned to read. I became a reader before I ever read Adam Smith Wealth of Nations. I was reading Spider-Man and X-Force and X-Men and, you know, the Punisher and Ghost Rider. That's what got me into reading. Like, I mean, you know, and I'm doing the same thing with my son right now. I've already got him. He's got multiple comic book subscriptions. I've got him Marvel Unlimited, you know, like so he can read the ones digitally and whatnot, just to help him read, help him get into reading, hoping that, like, you know, just like I did, maybe by the time he's 12 or 13, he'll go ahead and pick up a novel, you know, and pick up, The Bounty, pick up something, the War and Peace or something. That's what happened to me, at least. Like, the trajectory of like reading Marvel comics led me to read like masterpieces of like of literature eventually at 13, 12 years old. That's what it led to. And it was literally the writing of the Marvel comics and like the depth of the stories and like the maturity of it all. You know what I mean? Looking back at it with my dad, I mean, honestly, I mean, he really kind of like threw me to the war and everything and like whatnot, because I mean, I was watching some graphics, reading some graphic stuff and everything and whatnot with Marvel when I was like 9, 10, 11 years old. I was reading like, you know, every freaking woman back then, like in the 90s, every female character in the MCU had like triple Ds, you know, like, and like, you know what I'm saying? And their outfits made like were short and like, you know, so that you could see their legs and stuff like that. And like, they had that vibe going. They really were like, you know, because they knew that young boys were the ones that were for the most part, reading the comics, but the story writing, everything was great. And all I can really say with the Falcon Winter Soldier trailer, basically, and I'll go to you, Perry, in a minute. It's just that basically, I love that scene where I'm not sure who that was that grabbed that guy out of the wall, but that was freaking awesome, dude. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, seriously, that was great. And like the coolest thing about this whole situation is, honestly, I want to believe that these trailers are all based off of like basically the first episode. This is not the whole series. This is the first episode. So I don't know. What do you think, Perry? How long do you think it's 6 episodes is a series. How long do you think they're going to go with the episodes?
I think they're around an hour, including credits. So I think they're probably going to be 45, 50 minutes. And then there's usually like with WandaVision, the credits were like 6 or 7 minutes. So I think they're looking at like a 52 minute runtime or so. So it'll be like just under 6 or probably 6.5 hours or 5.5 hours worth of show, which is really cool. Because with WandaVision, they did the first like 2 episodes at 22 minutes, and then the next 3 were like 35 minutes, and then the last couple were the last handful were like 45 minutes. So with this one, we're getting a more consistent like hour, just under an hour runtime and stuff. So there's a lot that you can get in there.
There's a lot in that trailer to talk about. I mean, geez,
right.
You know, I mean, we could talk about that trailer alone for 2 hours.
Right. Yeah, and breaking down each thing, because like
Dark Sage doesn't understand that, but like, you know,
right.
I don't mean that negatively, but like literally, like we enjoy this so much that like we're so invested into these stories that Perry and I could go off that trailer for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you could get into talking about like the Flag Smashers and how that's from like one single character who started the Flag Smashers, and who seems kind of like a philosophy-wise not necessarily in a bad mind, but also actively acts on it in a bad way. But
I want to believe that they have to be enhanced. Like
Yes.
they must have taken the super soldier serum or something, because
yeah,
some of the stuff they've done in the trailers does not make sense from a human standpoint. Like, like the jumping that the character, the one Flag Smasher did on that truck. That truck scene was awesome.
yeah, and I think that's probably going to be like the second episode where they like, because I think the first episode is going to be like introducing these characters again in a way, in their current situation, and them developing like their first conflict. And then I think they're going to run into the Flag Smashers in that second episode, like really run into them. But I could always be wrong, because I don't know if that truck sequence is right after the plane sequence that they've been showing a lot of.
That's a good point.
So they could be the same like 20-minute like action scene, or it could be two different episodes. But yeah, I don't think they've shown anything further than the third episode at this point,
I think they're two different events. I do.
Yeah, that's
because let's be honest here. That plane sequence is very elaborate with the other, like with the other planes chasing Falcon and everything around those
yeah.
At that point, that seems like a very long action sequence,
Yeah.
And we don't even know where Bucky fits in that situation.
Right.
At that point, I have to believe that the truck action scene is probably from episode 2. That's what I would guess. I think it's probably episode 2.
That's what I'm guessing too. Yeah, it does seem like it. They're two different things, but yeah, I don't think they've shown anything further than like the third episode, maybe, because maybe that's when, but yeah, because they're definitely not going to show anything any later than that, because like you said, it's only 6 episodes. It's not 9.
One thing, I think that the scene with Zemo with his mask and him walking, I think that might be from the final episode. I do.
Oh, okay.
I do. That's just, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Well, because they did show one of the final scenes in WandaVision in the trailers, the one where they're looking out the window, like that happens in the last episode.
That's a good point.
They did show that in all the trailers. We just didn't know where to place it, or what was going on.
And the scene with the Mind Stone too was in episode 8, and we were very much like wondering what that was about in the reviews. Like, when's that going to happen? Like, when's that going to occur? What's it about?
Right.
And honestly, to tell you the truth, Perry, we never even talked about that really. You know what I mean? Like, that was a very captivating scene.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely possible that some of these scenes are in the later episodes. But I don't think maybe 5% of them, or maybe like 2 or 3 of those scenes, that we've seen in all the trailers, maybe 3 at the most, are from those later episodes. But they're taken out of context, so there's no way to pinpoint them in a narrative way. But overall, that's such a good final trailer too, because it gives us a really good sense of what this show is going to kind of be about, and where the conflicts are going to be, both between the characters and between like the Flag Smashers and Falcon and Winter Soldier, with leaving enough like mystery on why it's happening, because that's the big question, is why is this happening?
How'd you feel about Sam tossing the shield?
Oh, that was sick.
Yeah,
So
right.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hear me? I was like, love it.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
That shit was dope.
Yeah. And it cracked me up that they had like pads on the trees, so they weren't like cutting them in half and stuff.
Right? Yeah, that's how sharp it is. I mean, because it's adamantium, right? I mean, or no, I'm sorry,
vibranium.
It's vibranium.
Yeah.
So I mean, they haven't introduced adamantium yet, unfortunately,
Right.
but they will. I'm sure it's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, honestly, that trailer is just so action packed. I mean, it makes sense that they wanted this series to go first, because instead of WandaVision's tempo and pace really threw off a lot of MCU fans, whereas the Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to be like a roller coaster ride.
Right.
It's going to be like an MCU film in every episode.
Yep.
You're going to have action. You're going to have supposition. You're going to have humor. Which is great. That's the nice thing about Bucky and Sam's relationship, is that there is humor injected into it, and what I wanted to point out, Perry, was that this is a very individual situation that they even came up with this Falcon and the Winter Soldier, series to begin with, because take into consideration again that they planned the MCU out 4, 5, 6 years ahead. There's no way they planned this series because they basically just worked off of what happened in Civil War. They saw the chemistry between these two actors, these characters, explode on the scene. Everyone saw it. And at that point, they jumped on it. Yeah. And that's very different for Marvel Studios.
Yeah, and I think with these shows, it does feel like they're not necessarily fitting into that long-term plan that we like initially had talked about. Like it does feel like they are more feeling the characters out, because like there's ones like Miss Marvel that probably were planned out 4 or 5 years ago, and they were like, okay, we want to do that at this point after this movie comes out and after we've talked about this, but it does feel like with like, especially with like WandaVision, that feels like one that might have been 2 or 3 years ago, and they realized that more people were interested in the Wanda and Vision relationship in like Infinity War, and they wanted to see Civil War, and wanted to see what that was about. And then when people reacted,
Larson and Captain Marvel maybe had something to do with that too, them elevating Elizabeth Olsen and her character.
Yeah, I think people's reactions to the introduction of a lot of different different types of characters, and the positive feedback that they've gotten from including the more cosmic element or the more magic oriented characters has given them a little more leeway into developing that, because especially with Captain Marvel, it took place in space and then it came to Earth, and there was a lot of cosmic entity that existed in that movie that still has to be explored, which people enjoyed, and then you talk about like Doctor Strange opening up that door into the mystic elements of that too.
Natural too. Yep.
So there's a lot of aspects that open doors for them that they might not be sure it's going to completely open, so what's cool with these shows is they can explore those on a more grounded level.
That's a good point. That's a great point, Perry. They can take chances and see what flushes out and what works with the audience, because you know that they pay attention big time to how people react on the different platforms, different social media platforms, and whatnot, and like the views they get on their YouTube trailers and their TikTok views and everything like that. There's people whose job is to like track that kind of information.
Right.
And at that point, I mean, there had to be probably multiple reasons why they elevated Elizabeth Olsen and, and everything the way they did, and made WandaVision was about her.
Right.
It was. I mean, even people, I think there's people out there who probably don't even understand that now, even yet. Like even to this day, they probably don't get that the whole series was based around her. That all, like, I mean, the fact that Vision was not even real, her vision, it just tells you everything you need to know right there. Like she was the only tangible thing in there, other than, but then again, it also elevated Monica Rambeau, which, hey, there you go, right there. That's your point. Explain. There it is, right there, Perry.
Yeah.
You think they knew right at the jump that?
No, I think that's one of those things where they can introduce a character and see how they do, because Monica Rambeau can always play a secondary role, or if people really enjoy the character and how the actress is playing her and like everything like that, like how they initially are writing the character, they obviously now have a popular character that they can incorporate, and she's confirmed now for Captain Marvel too. So like if
he was before WandaVision even came out, right?
So they can utilize that character and they can feel him out a little bit, because even if she was confirmed from Captain Marvel 2, they can still, like, she's still going to play a secondary role to Captain Marvel, even if she's like the quote unquote sidekick in the movie, using that loosely. She's still not the main character and she doesn't need to be the main focus. But if she does really, like, if people continue to like say, hey, like when is she getting a movie, or hey, when is she getting a TV show? Now they know that they have another thing that they could do, you know?
Oh yeah, I mean, Tiana Paris did an awesome job with that role, without question. You got to give her credit. And no, I mean, listen, you made a really good point, Perry, by mentioning the fact that these Disney Plus, this platform and this type of content does really give them a whole new angle to how they plan the MCU, because for the first time now, they're really going off of initial reaction and and the weekly, fan vibe and everything and positivity that they get, what they get in return. I mean, it very well could elevate characters, just like Falcon and the Winter Soldier were elevated. It could elevate characters to where, I'll be honest with you, I mean, I don't know what will happen with Monica Rambeau, but I think that, I mean, let's be honest here. None of us really know what the next big Avengers level saga or like crisis is going to be.
Right.
People think that they know what it is. I mean, there's lots of ideas and rumors, but we really don't know what the next big, earth shattering event is going to be or whatever. We don't. But let's be in the comics, just for those of you who don't know, Photon, or Monica Rambeau, is actually a leader of the Avengers at one point. Like, she led the Avengers. So, I mean, that's how far that character could potentially go. I think that it's going to end up being divided, and you're going to have co-leadership of the Avengers when they finally do get around to an Avengers film 4 or 5 years from now or whatever, or 3 or 4 years from now or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to end up being like the Black Knight, Captain Marvel, Photon, Spider-Man are all going to kind of, Tom Holland, they're all going to kind of lead the Avengers. I mean, does that make sense, Perry?
Yeah, no, it's really cool that they can develop these characters into those kind of important roles moving forward. And especially with the Falcon and Winter Soldier, like they could, whether or not they continue for the next 6 or 7 years is like up in the air. But
did you hear that about that Kevin Feige article that he did? He did an article with I can't remember which website or which media group it was, but he basically flat out said that that Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes are going to be intrinsic aspects as characters of the future of the MCU.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I didn't see that. So that's kind of where my point was heading anyway. It was saying that these characters, even though it's a TV show, can still play an important role like moving forward. And these shows are a great point to see how they can fit in. With these characters, it's a little easier because they already have like the base popularity and all that stuff. But when you go into like Miss Marvel, that's kind of like the test, how is this character how do people react to this character? How do people like this character? What are the gripes? What are the positives? What are the negatives? What can we change? What can we not change? All that stuff. So I think that's a really cool part of these TV shows, that it gives them a chance to explore those different characters. Like we're talking about Moon Knight last week, and like that's going to be another interesting one, more so than I think Miss Marvel in the realm of will it work, because Moon Knight's great.
I'd love to do a show just on the speculation of what Moon Knight could end up being. Like
yeah.
I think it could literally be a series where it could break out. It could like literally like take off.
Yeah.
And people could really invest into that character.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. He's enough of he's such a kind of wild card when it comes to characters, so it'll be really interesting to see how he develops, especially, and I'm excited for that.
He's the Batman of the MCU, basically. I mean,
right.
He uses gadgets, like he uses weapons, like he's like just like Batman. He has a cape. His costume's even kind of like Batman.
Right.
He's got a hood. You know, I mean, and he's crazy.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, have you watched Legion at all?
Yeah, I watched like the first half of the first season. I didn't get too far in it before I had other stuff that I was watching, but I remember
I haven't seen a single episode.
Oh, it's pretty cool. Like, it's really wacky, and it's definitely a niche show.
Hold on, I saw parts of an episode. Yes, it is pretty wacky.
Yeah,
You gotta know
it
what the
takes you on a
hell's going on.
psychedelic trip. Yeah, it's a bit of it's like an acid trip on a show.
But I know the character from the comics, so I know the
Yeah.
world of Legion, like the fact that he has
Right.
multiple personalities. You never know who you're talking to. You know what I
Right.
mean? He can be anybody at any given time, and he's extremely
Yeah.
powerful. You know,
Yeah.
like, I saw the trailer for this new season, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I know. I got to go back and watch it because it was really cool. It does get confusing a little bit, but I'm sure it kind of all like fills in those gaps as you go along. But yeah, it did have a very like a psychedelic, mind bending aspect to it, which was really cool.
Yeah, very difficult, very complicated, like very
Yes.
layered, you know, type of character and like story. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, where I think that Moon Knight's going to be a little bit different, just because, I mean, Moon Knight's disorder, you know, is that he doesn't know who he is. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a matter of like who you're talking to at any given time. It's more of like he personally does not grasp at any given point who his identity is, who his actual original self is, because
Right.
he you know, he uses aliases to penetrate the criminal world and everything and whatnot and fight crime. And anyways, bottom line, we're a little far astray in talking the Winter Soldier. But listen, Perry, it's 10:03, and I know you got stuff to do. You know how I am. I can come at any given time. So like,
Yeah.
at that point, why don't we go ahead and call it here and say goodbye to everybody and whatnot? And we're gonna jump on this tomorrow. Do you want to say 9 p.m. again tomorrow, Perry?
Yeah, that works.
Is that cool? Let me write that down. Yeah, let's do 9 p.m. tomorrow night, and we're going to go ahead and finish our reactions to the trailer. We're going to play some more of the trailers, and we're going to get into the actual leaked synopsis that came out from 4chan and Reddit, where they basically explain, I believe, like 3 of the episodes, like episode 1, episode 2 or 3, and then like episode, I believe 4 or something like that. And there's a little bit of information about the last episode, but it doesn't tell you everything about it. So just so you know, if you don't like spoilers, if you don't like, you know, leaks and everything and whatnot, then you probably shouldn't even consider tuning in, because we're going to do a full on, you know, deep dive into the actual details of how this series is going to play out, which will be fun, right, Perry? I mean, I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah, it'll be a good time.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but anyway, so bottom line, thank you very much to everybody. Thank you to you know, for the question that we got from Dark Sage. That was very nice. I really appreciated that. Very different. Kind of changed the game for us a little bit, Perry, didn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it was cool.
nice wrinkle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and we're gonna be back we'll be back at it tomorrow at 9 p.m., 6 p.m. Pacific. So you know, I'll do a better job hopefully in promoting it than I typically do. So maybe I'll even get on it tonight, you know. But Perry, thank you very much, brother. I always appreciate you very much. I love talking with the soldier background. It's dope.
Oh, thank you.
It's dope. It really is. I'm jealous of you. Although I love the freaking Avengers Endgame poster in my background too. So I mean, it's all good. I love the American flag too. I'm good with this with the stars and stripes.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can never go wrong with the stars and stripes. But anyways, but yeah, thank you very much, Perry. You know, thank you very much, everybody out there who ends up, you know, checking out this video. We really appreciate all of you. And Perry, if you want to go ahead and sign us off.
Yeah, this has been Perry and Jeff on the MCU's Bleeding Edge. Thank you guys so much for watching.
All right, well, take care. Good night, everybody. Peace.